All right, everybody. As I said, welcome. I know some people are still getting into the meeting. Please put your greetings in the chat. Let people know where you are, what your role is. But I do want to officially welcome you to our session, Effective Interactive Word Walls for Classrooms with English Learners. This is part of my fall 2020 series on academic vocabulary. And let's jump right in. I am Gabriel Verone. I've been in public education for 15 years. Was a bilingual teacher, both one-way and two-way dual language from kindergarten through fourth grade. I've taught all of those grades. I love my Bitmoji because he's about 50 pounds thinner than I am, and he has a full head of hair, so love him. So my beautiful family, my wife April is a nurse. My 13, obviously this picture is a couple years old. I should update it, but then I'd have to search through my Amazon photos. I don't want to do that. So anyway, my son is now 13. So he's in a global prep academy in Crowley ISD. My son Zachary is 8. We just finished reading all 7 Harry Potter books out loud. He was surprisingly not sad when Dobby died. Spoiler alert, but guys, it's been like a long time. So I also work part-time at Southcliff Church with 5th and 6th graders. So our agenda for today is to explore what exactly it is that makes a word wall interactive. And then we're going to explore how to effectively use interactive word walls to help our English learners, and in fact, all of our students, acquire and utilize academic vocabulary in speaking and in writing. And as my team lead, Melanie Yoakum, you may have been in sessions with her at Region 11, likes to say, these strategies are good for all, but necessary for some. All right. And then lastly, if you're like, here's the thing, I already have word walls, and what am I going to do with those? Because they're not exactly what we're looking at today. We're going to look at how to do an Optimus Prime and transform those into interactive word walls. So I got you. Okay, so we're going to start off with a quick interaction in 4 minutes or less. And this is going to be a things that make you go, Anyone remember that one? Feel free to put yourself in the chat if you are old enough to remember that song. Some of you are not old enough. All right, what are interactive word walls and how are they currently being used in your district? Because we do have some coaches and some district level folks on your campus or in your classroom or classrooms. So here's what you're going to do. I'm going to pop a Zoom poll into the chat, and I want you to answer those 2 questions. And then I'm going to stop my share for a second so that I can put this in the chat. I also want you to respond. Sorry about that. My computer's being finicky. I want you to respond to one of the 2 sentence stems that I'm about to put in the chat. Okay? So here we go. Just like you would with an English learner, I've provided you a sentence stem. You do not have to answer both. Choose one to answer. And then I also want you to, no, you got to be kidding me. Oh, man. Okay, well, I checked this today before I came on, but apparently this sometimes happens. If you have more than one poll, both of them are not visible. So let's do this. Answer the sentence stem, and then just on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being we're not using word walls at all, 10 being we're using them regularly and I'm pretty sure they're interactive, give me a number somewhere in between where you are in your usage, or if you're a district or campus level person, where your campus is at in that use. Okay, we'll adapt on the fly. So respond to one of the 2 sentence stems. Give me a number from 1 to 10 on where your word wall usage is. I'll give you 3 minutes. Ready, set, go. Oh, and is it Ritu? Did I say it right? By the way, I did not welcome you, so welcome. And if you have any questions about the activity, please message me in the chat, okay? And she's at a 7, nice, so she totally heard me, fantastic. That's pretty good. All right, I got some high level folks here. Don't forget, thank you for the numbers. All right, good. All right, thank you, Erica. Love your definition. And by the way, after you type your definition, feel free to scroll and see other people's. Oh, Nikki, Nikki, do you want to teach the class? I think you've hit most of my major points already. Okay, Keisha, don't worry. Good teaching is good teaching. So even though you're in a new context, you're going to get there. All right, Rodney says it should be changed every 2 weeks. All right, it may not necessarily be that hard and fast of a rule, but the longevity of the word wall does matter. Oh man, Ritu, she's ripping it up here. And able to articulate and expressing content language. I love it. Oh, Vivian was like, the difference is who, all caps. Like, in case you didn't know, that's an indicator that it's important. Oh, nice. And Amy's gave me a quote. It's a live changing tool in the classroom. All right. Okay, very nice. If you're finishing up, you got about 30 seconds. So no pressure. It's all good. I will tell you that you guys are very much on the right track. Ah, yes. And Stephanie says that students should be able to refer to the words when help is needed, right? Okay, good. So the bottom line, I think we can all agree that word walls are not simply meant to be there to like, oh man, I'm a bilingual teacher. I gotta have a red word wall for Spanish and a blue one for English because they're gonna come check my room. So I better just throw some alphabet words up there, put them in alphabetical order. That way I can get the check mark on the box and my assistant principal will leave me alone, right? It's gotta be a little more than that. Otherwise, you're just taking up real estate, okay? So I know a few of you feel like you're not quite there yet. A lot of you are on the right track. So hopefully when we finish in 50 minutes, you will have a structured, simple, but comprehensive way to think about and create word walls that are interactive and therefore are effective, okay? So a traditional word wall versus an interactive word wall, okay? So traditional is usually just an alphabetic list of words, like someone mentioned. Please forgive me for not remembering. It is teacher created, right? Stays up all year. It's only comprised of words, and the words are usually random, or it's a compilation of words from a particular unit or a lesson or whatever, but they're not organized in any way other than alphabetical. By contrast, an interactive one is thematic or unit based, right? It looks like a graphic organizer. It is student created and student centered. It changes with a particular learning unit. It has words, pictures, or drawings, and can even include real objects. And all of the vocabulary words are related to specific grade level standards. So you have these pictures up here of what traditional word walls typically look like. And now let's watch this. Oh, you know what? I apologize. Trying to do too much. I didn't check the box. And that means if I do that, you can't see anything. So let's watch this video. It's very brief. We're going to be watching little snippets of it throughout. Okay. And let's take a look at what an interactive word wall looks like. If you can't see it, or it's not, you can't hear it, please let me know. Stop my share real quick because once you make it full screen, if you don't exit, you can't actually get back into the presentation fully. I realize that's incredibly inconvenient, but I have discovered that to be true. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So in a lot of ways, an interactive word wall is a lot like an interactive anchor chart, okay? Really, it is a concept map that allows children to see grade level content and standards with the relevant and requisite vocabulary, and then to work through how that vocabulary allows them to master the standard, okay? So here are the 5 steps. I'm gonna read them real quick, and then we're gonna go into depth and practice these steps right now in real time. So step 1 is you wanna read the TEK or TEKS, select vocabulary, and sketch out a concept map, right? Basically, choose what is a graphic representation that will allow my students to demonstrate their learning in a cohesive fashion, all right? Number 2, you want to prepare a student activity sheet that mirrors the concept map. So basically what you put up in an interactive word wall, students should also have in front of them, either on a piece of paper, or if you're teaching online or doing a hybrid model, have on their computer in the form of a Google Doc or a Google graphic organizer or something on Seesaw or something to that effect, okay? Then you want to build a word wall frame, which basically means how am I going to make this word wall come to life on my actual wall, okay? Then students build the word wall during class, okay, whether that be virtually or in person. And as the word wall sections are completed, right, as you learn about and collaboratively do specific sections of the word wall, students then also complete independently or collaboratively those same sections on the activity sheet that mirrors the word wall. Okay? Now, if you are doing in-person, online, hybrid, some kind of crazy version, okay, if you've never seen these Google graphic organizers, they're fantastic. Most of them are for literacy, okay? But if you make a copy of it, you can actually change each of the boxes and you can tailor it for your own specific needs, all right? So you have a QR code. I'm also gonna pop that bit.ly into the chat for you, all right? And I want you to go ahead and open those because we're gonna be using them today, all right? I will, and again, I apologize. I know I have to get out of the screen a lot and then reshare, and it's annoying, but I've tried many other ways. This is the only way that works. All right, so go ahead and open that up. All right, and like I said, if you would prefer to use the bit.ly, do that. All righty. Okay. The other thing I was going to tell you, and we're not going to watch this right now, but I'm going to forward you this presentation. This is done by one of my colleagues, Shelly. Last name totally escaping me at the moment. Sorry, Shelly. But she actually shows you how to create a digital card sort. But what you could do is use one of these Google graphic organizers and then use the card sorting part to put words that students could then place into and use to organize the graphic organizer so that you can create a digital scaffolded differentiated activity to make it easier for your English learners in particular and all of your students. So if you are real tech savvy or if that is your current context, that would be a great resource. And like I said, you will have access to that afterwards because we don't have time to do that today. Okay, so let's look at step 1. Let's see what it looks like, and then let's practice it. So step 1 is read the TEK or TEKS, select the relevant vocabulary, and sketch a concept map. So if we look at first grade TEK 110A, investigate how the external characteristics of an animal are related to where it lives, how it moves, and what it eats, okay? So for me, I'm just gonna make a chart, or I'm gonna make a table, okay? So I'm gonna include the name of the animal, right, where it lives. Here are some things that they need to know, right? The habitat, what are the animal's external characteristics, right? What it eats, okay, is it an omnivore, an herbivore, a carnivore? And what are the external characteristics that allow it to eat, right? So if it's a predator, what makes it a successful predator, right? If it's an omnivore, what are its characteristics that allow it to forage for food, but also hunt, things like that. And then how it moves, right? So what are the external characteristics and adaptation that allow it to move, right? Whether it be wings and feathers and hollow bones in the case of a bird, or dorsal fins and tail and cartilage-like skin in the case of a shark, whatever it might be. Then I choose some possible vocabulary, right? And then ultimately, I'm kind of giving you a heads up, right? I'm kind of revealing the end product, but I want my chart to look something like this, right? So I have the teacup here, right? I've highlighted the relevant verbs, external, how those are related, right? And then, as you can see, this is a first grade class, right? The students are filling that in, okay? So any questions or comments, any clarification anybody needs, you can drop it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself before we move on. Because we're going to practice, but if you're like, oh, yes, Marina, I will go back so you can use the QR code. Sorry about that. And if I don't see your question, I'm not ignoring you. It's just sometimes it's hard to see the chat when I'm sharing my screen. Please unmute yourself and let me know.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
You're good, Marina? You were able to scan it?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your patience, guys. And thank you, Marina. Again, I wasn't trying to ignore you. All right. Any questions before we move on here? Go.
On the wall, I noticed you said it's by teak. Especially like with math, I know a lot of times we change teaks on a regular, or you focus on the radius teaks. How do you do that?
So here's what I would do. And Keisha, may I ask, what grade level are you? What grade level
I'm 5th grade, math and science.
Okay. So then if it's me, I'm going to look at what are my kids being tested on, right? So for example, I'm doing a unit on area and perimeter, right? I know that they're going to be asked to find area. They're going to be asked for missing sides, right? And sometimes they may have to do both, right? So I'm not going to make an interactive word wall for every single standard. That's too much, right? But I'm going to choose my most tested teaks, right? And I'm going to choose the ones that are most essential for the students to get the overall idea of a specific unit. Does that make sense? So I'm doing a unit in 5th grade science. I'm trying to think in terms of like energy, motion, physics, right? Something like that. So I may do the laws of motion, right? I may do push and pull and forces and interactions and things like that. And I'm going to choose the most relevant, high leverage, most repeated vocabulary that's going to include as many of my standards as possible. Understanding that I'm not going to be able to make an interactive word wall for every single concept because that's too much. So I need to use my most tested teaks, and I used to use my most high leverage vocabulary words that are absolutely essential. Without these words, they cannot understand the overarching ideas in this unit. Does that help?
That does. One more question.
Yeah, please.
Then do you take them down and then you put up a new one as you change? How does that work?
We are going to talk about that. So
okay.
That's why somebody had mentioned like change it every 2 weeks. To me, I'm not going to make a gigantic word wall, right? It's too much real estate. I'm going to make something, say, on a piece of chart paper, right? That's big enough for them to see, that they can interact with, that then if I want to take it down and maybe say hang it on a clothes hanger or use it later. And another thing is what I have done in the past and I've seen work really well is if you want a bigger one, after the words, I'll take a picture of it. And then I have an online word wall album or an in-person one where kids can, I'll stick it in like laminated page protectors and then kids can refer to it. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
So that's the thing is we are going to talk about how do you manage it because that's a lot of word walls, right?
Yes.
Like that's too much. But if you think about it as this is not something onerous, this is something what we're making together and it flows with the unit and it gives them a big picture understanding and hits the highlights, I feel like it's a little more manageable.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. And please ask, okay? You can't get an answer if you don't ask. All right. So here's what you're going to do. I'm going to put you into some rooms. You have 2 teaks to choose from. I realize this may not be your grade level. This may not be your content, okay? But I've tried to pick things that are hit upon, at least in some form or fashion, in most elementary and middle school grade levels, right? Because you never stop analyzing plot elements, let's just be honest. And what I want you to do is with your group, select 3 to 10 relevant vocabulary words that students need to know to master that standard, okay? So for example, in the math one, they have to classify and sort, right? And then it gives you a whole bunch of vocabulary words, right? Now here, in order to analyze plot elements, right, they give you the words, those words are already listed. So once you choose those relevant words, and you may want to add other words that are not necessarily in the standard, but are still necessary, I want you to choose a Google graphic organizer, or if you're like, I don't have time for that right now, just you can draw it on a piece of paper. That works too. Choose a sketch of a concept map. How are you going to have kids classify and sort? How are they going to analyze plot elements concretely, both on an individual basis with their own sheet and on a class basis and collaborative basis with the interactive word wall, okay? I'm gonna put this in the chat. I would highly recommend that you copy it, because once I put you in a room, it's gone, you won't see it anymore, okay? And then I would recommend that one person share their screen so that you can actually work more easily. Does that make sense? Okay, here are the standards. You only pick one. Don't do both. That's a little too ambitious. Okay. And go ahead and copy and paste this for yourself. All right. And here are the directions. All right. Any questions before I send you to your breakout rooms? It's going to be 3 rooms with 5 a pop. Any questions? Make sure you've copied the standards to choose from and the 2 things you need to do. And you should get an invitation in the center of your screen that says join room. All right, ready, go, 5 minutes. If you do not have an invitation, please tell me so I can manually assign you to a room. Rodney, you good or are you just frozen? Okay, you're good. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, everyone is back now. I hope that collaboration was good for you. I have 2 quick questions. If I could get one representative from at least 2 of the 3 groups, right? So that we can make sure we honor our time here. Having practiced, because maybe you were like, this process seems a little much, it's a little onerous, right? Did it feel any easier? Okay, and then what specific graphic organizer or what kind of graphic representation did you choose? So feel free to unmute yourself, or you can pop it in the chat. How did the process feel? Did it feel doable? And what graphic representation did your group choose?
Our group, we struggled a little bit because 2 of us are in the car. But if we're going to use the plot one, the reading one, we've seen the graphic organizer. Well, it's not even a graphic organizer, a standard one, but just that visual of the roller coaster. I've seen it in classrooms, and one of my colleagues has seen it from her daughter's notes and stuff. And so, although it's not a standardized graphic organizer, we felt like that would be it's a really good depiction of what happens, and it's something that a lot of kids can relate to as far as the whole roller coaster thing.
Right, especially as you get to middle school, there's a lot of drama, right? And it feels like, oh, I'm on a mountain, my life is over. I know, because my son is 13, and I'm like, are you sure you're not a girl? Because sometimes you're a little emotional, son. I don't say that though, because his mom would punch me in the mouth. Okay, and I did intentionally choose that one because I figured everyone would go there. Anybody choose that standard and come up with a different graphic organizer than the standard plot diagram? And again, is there anything wrong with that graphic organizer? Is it deficient somehow? No, right? It's perfectly fine. But if you use that as your word wall and have it labeled, and guess what? That one, they do a lot of reading of fiction, right? That one maybe you don't take down, and maybe regularly in stations or centers or when they're doing independent reading, they can put up sticky notes or note cards, or if you make it into, if you get a picture of it offline, add some text box in Google, it can be an ongoing Google slide presentation, right? And so they could get into the shared one, put their name, put a new story, and map that out. Yeah? All right, another group, Amy's like, you give yourself too much credit there. But if I believe I'm good, maybe I can fool you guys too. That's what I'm trying to do here. Marisa's like, not really, sir. Not really, sorry. All right. All right. Anyone else? Anyone else want to be brave and unmute and let me know what your group talked about?
I'll go. I had a wonderful bunch of educators with a range from kindergarten to sixth grade. So we chose the third grade, the mid path, and we came up with using the KWL to start the prior knowledge. The KWL, what do you know about two-dimensional figures? What do you know about three-dimensional figures? And eventually have them do a compare and contrast. So KWL chart scaffolding to compare and contrast with two-dimensional, three-dimensional. And then one of my colleagues said, it'll be great to have them use clip art because if most of my kids, but I'm teaching at Arlington ISD and most of our kids are online. So it's easier for them to use clip art and copy and paste and, write a little word and then show a little picture. So especially with English language learners, I think it's very essential that we use a lot of visuals. So we came up with that.
Fantastic.
It was
And
great
again,
interaction.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, you're good. I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm not telling you to like forget all the good practice that you've learned in the past, right? I'm just asking you to take what you're doing and make it as effective as possible. And if you do watch that video on card sorts, you could preload that clip art for them. And then all they would have to do was move it. And you could even add a spot for text so that they could put why they're moving it or what are the attributes that cause them to put it into a particular category. Okay. All right. Let's share my screen once again. Thank you so much for your input. Let's keep on going. We only got about 25 minutes and we still got a lot of learning to do. All right. Step 2, prepare a student activity sheet that mirrors the concept map, right? So exactly what they're going to put up on the wall is what they're going to do individually and collaboratively, right? And then basically you just want to build a frame, right? Basically you want to build that chart either, like I said, on a piece of chart paper, on the wall, however you want to do it, with tape, with string. If you just do it on a piece of paper and draw lines, that is perfectly legit. That's okay. The other step that I would do is I would put what questions do I want students to be able to answer very specifically in each of the dimensions of my graphic representation, right? And what are some sentence stems that I can give them, especially because they're English learners, that will give them a scaffold and set them up for success, right? So for example, in the where it lives category, I want them to tell me very specifically, what is the animal's habitat? And I would have them respond to the frog's habitat is the swamp, right? So they put the animal name. And then if you're like, well, my kid's not going to understand that. But if you just put a blank and either put a picture or whatever you need to put there, right? You can cue them. And then I want them to specifically answer what adaptations, right? And I've used one of my vocabulary words, help the animal live in its habitat, right? The adaptations that help the animal live in its habitat are, in the case of the frog, right? It's webbed toes, it's porous skin. I realize a first grader is not going to write porous skin. I get that, right? But it's powerful back legs, or it's legs for jumping, right? Whatever it is that facilitates the animal's survival, right? Similarly, in what does it eat? I want to know, what does your animal eat, right? And that may seem obvious, but to some kids, you and I both know it's not so obvious, right? So then I want them to put the frog eats blank, right? And then I want them to put the name of the animal is, and I want them to tell me what's its classification. So I'm not going to read all of these to you, but what I would highly encourage you is you get what you expect, right? And so if you don't give very clear guidelines as to what you want children to put, they're going to put random stuff, usually stuff you don't want them to put. And if you give them a couple of sentence stems, you are setting them up for academic success and giving them a foundation of how to use academic language in complete sentences. Because how many of you don't have to unmute, you can raise your hand. How many of you teach upper grades and kids still don't speak or write in complete sentences? Right? Some of y'all are raising your hand, but you know it's true. Don't lie. Don't act like that doesn't happen to you. Oh, I got a whole bunch of thumbs up. Yeah. Yeah, that kills me. All right. Okay. So let's move on to the practice portion. So you're gonna go to your same group, okay? If I think somebody just joined the meeting, welcome. If you got kicked out and you're back in, I'm gonna send you to your same group. You're gonna use your same TEK, okay? You don't really have to prepare a student activity sheet, right? Just make sure if you didn't successfully or completely choose a concept map to come up with that now. What I really want you to think about, I want you to focus on number 2. I want you to think about what vocabulary, what words would you put into each of the categories or spaces of your concept map, and write some sentence stems, okay, that will allow students to successfully complete the concept map that you're going to provide them. All right. When we come back, go ahead and choose one person to pop one of those stems into the chat so we can take a look at them and answer any questions, and I can give you some positive feedback. All right. So I'm going to stop my share and put this stuff into the chat. If you have any questions while I'm doing that, now is the time. So do I need to put the standards back in the chat for anybody? Does anybody need to see the standards again? Okay, I'll put them back in there. You have the directions for this section. I'm going to pop the standards back in, and you will have 5 minutes like before. I really want the focus to be what sentence stems, get as many as you can, would help your students be successful for actually providing the content that you want for their concept map for the chosen TEK, okay? All right, 5 minutes, I'm gonna open all rooms. If you are, is it Kiamisha, is that right? I'm gonna assign you to group 2, okay? If that's not where you were, please let me know.
Sounds good.
Okay, and did I say your name right?
Kamisha.
Kamisha.
Yes.
Okay, here you go. Tamara, are you good? Are you frozen? Are you all good?